Hello, everyone, and today we're going to be talking again to AHOWL 11, one of the lead developers for Rome Total Realism Imperium Surrectum. Hello, AHOWL, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's a great morning here where I'm at, and glad that you could join me.
All right. So, yeah, as everyone knows, the patch for Total War Rome Remastered has just dropped, the brand new huge patch, and you can see I've already got a bunch of videos about it up. And right now we're going to be talking about not the patch updates, but the updates to one of the biggest total overhaul mods for Rome Remastered, which is RTR Imperium Surrectum. You can see the main menu here, and we're going to be talking about the updates to the mod in particular. So, Ahowl, what are some of the biggest new features included in this patch for the mod?
Well, there's going to be a bunch of stuff that we touch on today. We're going to be talking about some new factions um, to show that we have more than 21 factions now. We're going to talk about regions to show that we've gone over the 200 region limit.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about a new religions, the new religion slash culture system. We will talk about the combination of Alexander and Barbarian Invasion features with the Rome Total War features. We have a bunch of new traits and ancillaries to make the game more interesting. And I think the coolest thing is at the end, we'll show you some unit variation with our units with
Right.
Rome, Carthage, the Iberians, and Macedon. We have some awesome variations with that to show you what's possible. So
Absolutely.
yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff to talk about.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, I think a lot of people are especially excited for that variation within, and these are like, remember, ported original Rome Total War clone units, right? So these
Yeah,
are ported units with variation. So this is huge. So
yeah, it's probably
yeah,
the most exciting things to kind of like watch, not only with our mod, but other mods do over time, because this is something that we've been wanting forever, and we never thought was possible until now. So pretty cool.
right, right. So I guess first off, let's maybe go into the campaign select and talk about the new factions.
Correct. Okay, so you're gonna see uh, a few things with the factions. First of all, with our current factions, we kind of revamped them a little bit. So the actual faction leader of the faction is now posted here. That was kind of a little fun task. I wanted to get all the correct portraits in, so all these guys' faces are the actual faction leaders that you see. And
Historically accurate,
un-
of course.
yeah, right. And then
Yeah.
yeah, this is how they actually look like back
Yeah.
in the day.
Right.
But expert researchers were able
Yeah.
to get that info.
Yeah.
Um, anyways, a few things with a few changes with a few of the current factions. One is the Gauls. The Gauls are now officially the Arverni, and they are going to be. This needs to be changed still. We're still working on a few things before. So when you see this, when you play, this map will just be a slight bit different. But they're just going to have one region to represent the Arverni. They're no longer going to be all over Gaul, Cisalpine Gaul, and Galatia.
Hmm.
So they are down to one tribe. I wanted to completely cut out the Confederacy nationality factions from vanilla in this release and focus on the tribal specifics, because now with new factions and the whole realms of possibilities in the future, there's no sense of having a Gaul faction. So we are
Right.
starting
Right.
we're starting with the Arverni, and I'm sure at some point we'll have the Dewey and whatnot, but there you go. So that's one. The other factions that we've changed would be
The Greeks.
the Greeks a little bit. The Greeks are beginning a process of change with this release. I won't touch much on it going forward, but they have changed a little bit, and you'll see soon. And then we also have the Sarmatians are no longer the Sarmatians. They are uh, I cannot say this word. It is
Syrakis?
the Syrakis or I always say it because I'm, you know, plain American English, the Syracis, but I'm sure that's butchering it. But these guys were like a Hellenized Scytho-Sarmatian people in the modern Kuban region. Uh, Basically, we want to get away from the national or tribal confederation, and these guys were the most powerful at this time. So they fought against the Bosporan Kingdom. They were Hellenized. They were more settled than their nomadic kin,
Right.
but there's not a lot known about them. And yeah, there's actually references if you really do your deep research, like our guys have. They might not have even been considered part of the Sarmatians. They might have not. They might have kind of been their own entity. So that's kind of interesting. And because that's interesting, we figured we would represent that. So you have them. So no longer the Sarmatians. And
Mhm.
then lastly, with the current factions, instead of the Celtiberians, again, I want to get away from that generalized faction name. They're now the Aravaci. Um, the Aravaci were the main Celtiberian tribe that were centered around the capital Numantia. And yeah, like again, with new factions coming in the future, I want to get away from the crazy uh,
The
amalgamation.
amalgams, right, right. Because I mean, when the faction limit was 21, with a map this big, it makes sense to have amalgam factions, right? There's no other way around it to make the campaign balanced and interesting. But
Right.
now that the faction limit has been raised to 25, I'm just kidding. It's not 25. It's 25 billion.
Yeah.
Uh, anything's possible, right?
Anything is, and you got to think about like kind of like the Rome 2's model. Rome 2 doesn't have the Celtiberians; they have the Aravaci, and they have the Lusitani, and they have the Editani, and they have all these other factions. And so we're doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the new factions are going to be ta-da, Sparta. The reason why we decided to do Sparta was mainly for the fandom that they generate. I know a lot of people love Sparta, the 300 movie, Spartan, Spartan legacy, Spartan difficulty, just the uniqueness of the faction, all the cool fancy units that comes with Sparta. So we include them. The reality is, Sparta at this time was probably one of the weakest nations in the world. Um, their military was degenerating. The Spartan hoplite of old was no longer. They were still there, but it wasn't the same. Our lead historian Masalos, um, throughout the many years I've worked with him, has always questioned why are we adding Sparta as a faction
Right, right.
because they were just so weak at this time. Now that's okay because I think they did have a revolutionary period about 50 years from the start, and
They had a
in the
chance.
future,
They had a
yeah, they have
chance.
it, and so they're going to be interesting because we're using the Roma Surrectum 2 units. They had a Spartan faction, and so there's a lot of units, and it made sense to make them a faction. So they're going to be quite interesting to play as. They start off very weak, so don't expect them to just be world beaters, but definitely will be an interesting faction to play as. And we'll get into the map in a little bit. The second faction we wanted to add, drum roll, is the Galatians. The Galatians we added mainly to help with breaking up the Gallic like world faction that we had. This was an easy faction to add because not only were they very important at this time, but for gameplay balance, it helps the Gauls, which are now the Arverni.
Yeah.
The Galatians are going to have a very similar roster to the Arverni. Most Celtic factions going forward are probably going to have very similar unit rosters because there wasn't a lot of uniqueness between tribes. Kind of like with like the Greek nations, there's a lot of unique units. from nation to nation, but with Celts, it's basically the same thing. You get your warbands, your swordsmen, your skirmishers, your cavalry, and your like champions or your nobles.
Just shirtless
There
guys.
are, huh?
Just shirtless guys.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm just kidding.
there are some things based off archaeology where we can kind of represent each tribe differently, but the Galatians will be kind of like the Gauls of the East
Right.
for now. And they do, it's quite interesting in Asia Minor now. You get a lot of activity. And the reason why I say that is because the next faction is also right next door to the Galatians, and that is Pergamon or the Italids. This was a really kind of a fun faction to do because they are so interesting. Take they have you have to do some deep research for their unit roster. Thankfully, we have some excellent historians. But Pergamon is like a mix of like what you'd think a Greek cities faction would be, kind of like a knockoff poor man's Seleucid faction, as
Yeah.
well as like some local units. So Pergamon was in the region of Mysia, and Mysia had a lot of warlike peoples and tribes, which Pergamon used and took advantage of. And we have, I think, 2 to 3 units to represent that with them. And with Pergamon, they have some Hellenistic units that you can get as well. We are going to look forward to simulating how you can get those units in future releases. Right now, you're just going to have them available to you. But in the future, you're going to have to conquer some Seleucid territory to get those units. But that's for a later.
So like
release.
reforms.
Basically like reforms. But
Yeah.
because we're in such a beta right now and everything is kind of basic and kind of like a vanilla version,
Yeah.
we're just kind of giving units to you to play with. But yeah, as we get deeper into development and more immersed, you're going to have to earn some of these cool units. So, well, just enjoy it while you have it now, because yeah, you're going to have to work for some of this stuff later. And then lastly, and I think it's going to probably be my favorite faction that we're adding, these are the Bosporans. And this is proof right here that the faction limit has been increased. So anybody that's holding on to your doubts and your conspiracy theories, I'm sorry, but we just busted your myth. This is the 22nd faction of the game, including rebels. We were just going to do 3 factions, but I really wanted to get a 4th faction in to prove that, hey, look, 22 factions in Rome Total War. How about that? Obviously, we're looking to increase that in the future, but for right now, 22 will suffice. The Bosporans are quite the interesting faction. I actually have, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I have a book on them called The Armies of the Bosporan Kingdom. I got this maybe 5 years ago, and I read the book, and I posted a whole research post back when we were doing Rome Total Realism about their whole unit roster. And I would say 90% of that unit roster that I research is going to be represented in this mod, in this version too. So they're going to have a really interesting unit roster, and we'll take a look at that soon.
Yeah.
But they are a cool faction. And last but not least, kind of like a little Easter egg, plus like a little tool for all you players and modders out there, I added a dummies faction. So these dummies, I know this is kind of like a joke here. These dummies can't tell left from right. Go ahead and sit back, relax, let Edopolis do nothing and see the world go around. Serious note, this faction is to be used for AI testing only. Okay, so I want you guys to be able to have something that helps you when it comes to modding or testing or whatever it is. If you want to make a sub mod of our mod, use the dummies to help you. They are a faction in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and their capital is Edopolis. Edopolis is a homage to Edwin, who is the lead designer or the lead guy basically at Feral. So basically what this faction will be is just use it to test the AI and how they move around and just how balancing it and stuff. That's basically why we added this faction. This faction will not be playable in your version. So when you get the mod downloaded or subscribed, you will not see this available. You will have to manually do some editing to get them playable. But if you know your way around the files, it will not be a hard thing to do. But anyways, just wanted to get that out of the way because I'm sure people are going to be wondering
Right.
what the W stands for. But with that being said, let's get into the campaign map. Go in as both Bosporans.
And since we're at this loading screen, I think this is a good chance to mention that in this next version, you fixed a bunch of CTDs, right?
Yes. So right now you're seeing vanilla loading screens. Just know that we shot this like a week before release. And at the time we haven't gotten our loading screens back in. But yes, if you had the random crashing when loading into something or out of something, it was due to it was either one or a couple of our loading screens, they just weren't formatted correctly. And because of that, it was just causing so many issues. So right now we've just taken them out temporarily. We're gonna put them back in for your release, but yeah, for this video purpose, they're not in. Crazy how some of the crashes are just due to the most silliest of things.
Yeah.
But anyways, the Bosporans are gonna start off with Pantikapaon and Panagoria. They have their faction leader here. Heresides? Heresides? I don't know. I'm not good with those. But they have their family tree and everything.
This is also
still
new
gonna-
in Rome Remastered, right? In the new patch, this family tree screen. Is it
Yeah,
new?
so
Yeah.
no, I think this came out with the second pack.
But oh, the new thing is that you can see multiple families.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
I'll showcase that with the Romans before we get out of here.
Yeah, that'll
Um,
be something to show off for sure.
but I wanted to show off the units, the like how unique the unit roster is for the Bosporans. So, oh, and here's another thing we can show off is the new UI. Boom.
Right.
How about that?
I think that's what 98% of people were looking for.
Yeah,
The big
so
cards.
check this out, guys. Basically, this is what we were used to, and nobody liked that. Everybody's like really angry about that, and for good reason. I didn't like it either. I love seeing the unit infos. All you have to do now is hit this button right here. It's called Maximize Details. And there you go. And then what happens is it saves it. So anything that you click will have the maximized
And every
if you
time
keep.
you exit the game and enter the game, it'll remember this setting. So you don't have to change it every time.
Right. And it's the same thing for buildings.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
maximize or minimize for buildings as well. One other thing that's cool about the new patches, Barrel really worked on the UI and the strings. Anything that the building can do is now going to be shown. There's not going to be the hidden stuff or the weird stuff anymore. So um, I remember in mods, in OG, and even in the first few versions of Remastered, you wouldn't be able to represent on the UI some of the stuff that you're doing with the buildings. Now everything is represented. So the tax income bonus, when it's a negative, it actually shows a negative button,
Yeah.
where before it would show a positive button. It would just be super confusing.
Yeah.
So
Positive, minus, whatever.
and the
Yeah.
the building trees are a little bit more flexible now as well. But anyways, to the units. So the Bosporans didn't have they didn't have many Greeks. They were Greeks, but the Greek people were free citizens. And so what that means is they didn't have to participate in war unless they chose to. The Bosporans were also a trading nation, so they were very rich. And because of that, they hired a lot of mercenaries to do their war for them. The book talks about the Thracians being their skirmishers for the most part. They had a lot of Scythian allies, and so they're represented with their archers. And they had a lot of mercenaries. So the hoplites, the mercenary hoplites are going to represent that. Believe it or not, they actually had Paphlagonians do cavalry for them.
Huh.
You get your Scythian archer, your Scythian horse archers. You get your heavy cavalry. The Scindians were peoples who were local to the area near Phanagoria. They were used a lot as troops. And then here's your general unit right here, the Bosporan Cavalry. And then they did have some of their own troops. So this is their most elite unit right here.
Hmm.
Here's some more Scythians. This is going to be their main unit. These are Greek, Bosporan civilians or citizens who chose to take up arms. This is kind of like a later history unit. And then you have your Bosporan archers and then some infantry. But yeah, you would expect with a Greek faction to have like maybe Greek peltasts, Greek archers, Greek cavalry. No. With the Bosporans, you're going to get a very dynamic roster full of different ethnicities. Should be a lot of fun to play with these guys. And now let's go to
Yeah, let's
check out
quickly see. Yeah, Pergamon.
which faction are you looking forward to trying out?
Me?
Yeah,
Hmm. I guess I would like the Bosporans too. I like it when factions have, a diverse roster because I don't like being pigeonholed into just one style. You know what I mean?
correct.
Yeah.
So here's Pergamon. Show their family tree real quick. You got Eumenes, Italos, and a couple others. Um, so these guys have more of a Greek roster right now. You got the Greek archers, skirmishers, slingers. There's their general's bodyguard, and we actually have. I would recommend if you guys like your history and you like to read, we have specialized descriptions from our historian Masalos on a lot of the Italian units. So you have your general's bodyguard here. These are the Mycenaeans that I touched on earlier. Yeah, and you have references and everything. Masalos is very thorough. One thing that RAS strives to do as we continue to develop is be educational. And so
Right.
definitely want to read about these guys. Yeah, they're your basic Greek cavalry units, your Tarentines, which were available all throughout the Hellenistic world.
Right.
Mycenaean cavalry. You have you have a very diverse roster. It's very Hellenistic, but also very Greek.
And I have to say, I think the heavy Pergamum units are some of the best units that Tone has made. Some of the best looking ones.
Oh yeah, this is one of my favorites right here. And like, again, there's another really good description on these guys and where they're coming from, why we added them. Like it's like you basically can get an understanding of like, okay, this is why they have them in the mod. This is their historical source.
Right.
Um, and yeah, now we're not done with all these. Like for instance, these guys still need to be worked on. Um, but this is a really cool roster, I think. And they even get some Galatian units. This one right here, I'm not sure if we're keeping this guy in the future, but he's so cool that we decided to just kind of have him in for right now.
Yeah, I mean, look at that.
Yeah. So there's Pergamon. And Pergamon actually, let's see that I think they have some diplomacy. That's another thing you'll see is diplomacy is as accurate as we can make it. Yeah, so they're going to be allied to the Seleucids, but they're at war with the Galatians. So
Yeah.
definitely check your diplomacy before you start playing.
Right, right.
Let's go check.
That's good to
Speaking of
mention.
the, let's go check the Galatians real quick. Be a little bit of a some Celtic love here.
Yeah, Galatia, I don't believe that was a faction in Roma Surrectum, if I'm not mistaken. It
I
might have
think
been one of those swap factions.
yeah, the swap faction. Here you go. So we I think I need to edit the family tree real quick. So we'll look into it, but unless, oh, I wonder if this is a chance to show.
The faction, the family tree. Yeah.
Oh no, I think he's not connected to the family yet.
But
So we'll look
the
into.
arrows at the top.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go
perfect.
to the arrows at the top. If
Okay.
you go through the arrows at the top, yeah. So it shows all of the family tree. So the thing was, before and in original Rome Total War and in the remaster, you could only see the family tree of the faction leader, but now you can see every family tree in the faction. So
Yeah,
that's huge.
and we have a guy to represent each. Now, I think there's one more tribe that we might need to add. So I think there was three Galatian tribes, but we have two of them, the Talistobogi and the Chocmi, represented here.
Right.
And this is to show off the traits as well. We have we've overhauled the trait system. Um, so like we have like a trait based on your culture. So like this guy has like one of the highest Celtic traits, and that becomes Brenos. So it kind of helps. Um, Tribal. So we have three, and I'll talk about this one a little bit. There's three cultures dominating the map: tribal, Greco-Roman, and Eastern. So this
Hmm.
helps with that. And then
And that's the religion mechanic, right? That you're using.
correct. And knowledgeable in the Celtic ways. And then he's Galatian, but then he's also Trocmi.
Yeah.
And so this gives like a little bit of a decent history of who they were and what they did. So that's kind of like touching on the new trade system that we have. Let's see this guy now. Galatian and yep, there's a little wow, look at that. The Callisto Bogey guy. Pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
Um Now these guys using rosters, like I said, are very similar to the Gauls. Or I keep calling them the Gauls. They're the Arverni now. I mean,
Yeah.
we've been calling the faction the same thing for 10 years.
Similar to the other Celtic factions.
Yeah, definitely. But they have their own unique units too. Like you have their Colostoboyan Naked Fanatics. 304 cavalry were kind of more localized in Asia Minor than they were in Europe. You have your chariots, you have your nobles, and then yeah, you have your Galatian specific units too. Detective Sages, I think that's the tribe we need to. I think we might need to add one more character to the
Yeah.
family. Let's remember that. And there you go. So room for improvement, room for growth, but we have, as you see here, more history. So definitely take a read with these new units. We're doing the best we can as we do new things, trying to make it historical, and the descriptions are a lot lengthy process. But while I'm here, I will talk about that religion system.
Yeah.
So from Barbarian Invasion, we have they had pagan Christianity and Zoroastrianism, and the UI still reflects that a little bit. We'll have to fix that eventually. But with this, we have tribal, Greco-Roman, and Eastern. So it's pretty self-explanatory. Most of the Celts, Germans, Iberians, Dacians, Sarmatians, they're all those lands are tribal. And then you have the Greeks and the Romans, they're Greco-Roman, and then you have the Carthaginians and anything in the East, Eastern. We're going to expand on this later, but we wanted to get three basic ones and just for the future. But yeah, it's kind of like a religion system, but it's based on culture. So if you're the Galatians, you're kind of in a tough spot because yes, and Kyra here is going to be tribal, but when you take Leonorius and you attack Heraclea Pontica,
Which is Greco Roman.
which is Greco-Roman, there's I don't think how do you see I don't think you can see the settlement details of your enemy, but yeah, it's going to be tougher. So once I were to conquer that, it would probably have a lower public order, as you can see here with the dominant religion. Yeah, it's 90% Greco-Roman. So if I start building my, let's see, the building that would conflict with that, kind of like how a church would conflict with, kind
A pagan
of
temple.
like how in Barbarian Invasion you had a church, and the church would conflict with the dominant religion of the region. It's kind of the same thing with our recruitment building
The
here.
religious buildings, right down there
Correct. And
below it.
so not this one, but the main one here. Yeah. So it's a
Yeah.
35% conversion rate to tribal. But obviously this is the annexation 4. You have to start with annexation 1. And what that's going to do, that's going to cause a lot of unrest. And so you're going to have to really be smart with how you expand, especially like when you're the Galatians and you're kind of like a tribal nation surrounded by Eastern and Greco-Roman regions. So Galatians will be a tough one for sure. I would say the Bosporans would be tough up here if you want to conquer north. And then like as Rome, even expanding into Gaul as Rome, that's not going to be an easy expansion because if you're going to want to recruit your units, you're going to have to convert the culture, and that's going to cause some trouble. So definitely hoping that this feature kind of slowed down expansion. We are not fans of blitzkrieging through the map. We want you to be able to kind of be challenged as you go through the campaign. So that's kind of explaining that. And then a lot of the traits, like I mentioned, a lot of these kind of go in with it. So he's tribal, and then a lot of like the fact that he's Celtic and everything like that, that goes into the conversion as well. And then these Galatian and Total yeah, these just give you little bonuses based on how the culture is. So you get little unique features that way. So with that, after that, let's go check out the last faction. I saved these guys for last because they are probably going to be the most popular. And I'll also show off some of the new regions.
Right.
You can see 2 new regions here in Greece. But Barda, we haven't adjusted these guys yet, but eventually we're gonna have the 2 different Spartan family trees. Right
Right.
now
Right. For sure.
it's a very basic roster. The very basic family tree right now. But yes, there were 2 families and 2 kings. We're gonna represent that eventually. Their unit roster is not quite finished. We just added a unit to them. So you're gonna see this guy. We still have to make him. This is actually, I think he's gonna be the Paraoiokoi, I think is how you say it, hoplites. And then we are still working on the description for a Spartan cavalry unit. So it turns out that the Spartans basically had no cavalry.
Yeah.
They had like maybe a couple hundred later on. So this is going to be a very unique faction for you to play as because it's all infantry. Even the bodyguard unit here is an infantry unit.
Yeah.
So you better get used to infantry warfare and hoplite warfare because that's basically everything that the Spartans are. You can probably get your cavalry through mercenaries, but you're not going to have factional cavalry except for this one unit, and they're not going to be very strong at all. But you have your helots, so that's a little bit, they're a little bit different from the different Greek skirmishers. You have your helot skirmishers, slingers, and archers. And then you have very specific Spartan units. I'm going to skip this guy because he's not finished yet. We have the Skiritae and the Cryptea. These are the Periokoi. I we have a description ready for him. It's not in yet. He'll be in for the release. But then you have your hoplites, and then your specific like class units, like the Neodemoidae. And then these guys are like the elite. So I don't think they're as elite as your bodyguard, but those are going to be your main guys for as far as like
Right.
crushing your opponents. That's your main force. These are like the Spartans of vanilla right here.
Hmm.
And then you have your bodyguard unit, which you're not going to get many troops on these guys because they're a bodyguard, but they are pretty. If you look here, they are like
Tanks.
impenetrable.
Yeah.
Tanks, yeah, good call on that. So there's your Spartans. Very limited unit roster, but that's how they were. We didn't want to put a bunch of fake troops in there. The Spartan unit roster is pretty small, and they're going to be a tough challenge to play as. But with that being said, we added a bunch of regions to kind of showcase how you can do more than 200 regions now. So you have Argos and Megalopolis now in Greece. We added Ambracia, Thessaloniki to go with Pella. And the Balkans got a bunch of new cities to help the Getae and the Odrysians. So Tylis, the Celtic kingdom is right here. And then we added a bunch of Dacian settlements because it's pretty empty here right now in the current region.
Right.
So Arsadava, Dacidava, Piraboridava. You go over to Italy to help with the Socii and kind of represent that better. You have Asculum and Paestum. Carthage gets a little bit of a buff in Sicily with Panormus. And they get another little bit of a buff in Spain with Malacca. It's also cool with the new remastered version. I love how they have the region names underneath the settlement names. That is something I really like.
That's right. They added that in this patch as well. I think I might have mentioned that. Yeah, I believe I did. But yeah.
You got Hermandica here, where a little bit more. It was just kind of a blank area, and then you go to Gaul, and you can see the Arverni are by themselves. You added Kinnebum, where the Carnutes were. The Carnutes were like the religious leaders of all of Gaul. So all the tribes would consult with the Carnutes and their elders for wisdom and whatnot. It's kind of interesting. Aduatuca is added here to represent the Belgae peoples better. And then we added Tulisurgium and Canduum to kind of better represent the Germanic areas. And we added an old one from vanilla, Tara. So Hibernia is now its own region again. It's not combined with Caledonia. Let's see, what else do we add? We added a couple up here in Scythia, Azagarion and Navarus, just to kind of help the area out a little bit. You go down here, Phoenicia. It didn't feel right having Sidon and not having Tyre. So Tyre is now added. And then Egypt got, or the Ptolemies got Pelusium, which is a very important settlement for them. Up here in Armenia area, and this is something that you'll like, we added Corduene at Sareza. So I think this is going to be some of the best representation of this area, because you have Kamak and Nymphios. And let's see.
And then you have Arsarata there.
Yeah. This is one suggested by you, which Arsarata is the ancient name for, how do you say it? Payatakaran?
Yeah, Paitakaran. Yeah.
Paitakaran, yeah. So that's where that is. So we hope that this is some of the most accurate. I know you've done a video on it. We hope that this will make number one for you here. Representation of Armenia.
Yeah, when you do when someone makes era campaigns, they should consult like the division of provinces here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We also added Gabai to give Persia another region. And then up here in the north, oops, looks like I just stumbled onto another new feature, which I'll touch
Right.
on quickly.
Adding Barbarian Invasion and Alexander features,
Absolutely.
including
So we'll
hoarding.
get into that next. But you have Tribacter here for the Seleucids, and then another nomadic settlement up here in Telats. But yeah, let's exit out and look into that little feature a little bit more.
Right, because it's the new patch, or actually, these were combined in the last patch, right? The features from Barbarian Invasion and Alexander.
It was, but we weren't able to. We didn't have enough time
Yeah.
to represent it. So we're kind of using this release to show off a lot of the new stuff from the last patch too, which honestly, in some of the discussions I've had and seen throughout the servers and whatnot, a lot of people aren't even aware of what that last patch actually does. So being able to showcase it, I think, is bringing it to the light.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have here this is no longer the Parthians. Um, it's we are the Parni now. So yep, Parni. And the Parni is a more accurate description for what was happening at 270 BC. There was no Parthian faction. There was a Parthian region and a Parthian vassal. And what happened is that Parthian vassal of the Seleucids revolted against the Seleucids. But when that happened, that opened the door for the Parni here to come in and conquer. And what they did is they just took Parthia, the region, as their name, but they were called the Arsacids. They were a dynasty, but they were a nomadic dynasty, took over Parthia, and they took over all of Persia, but they kept to their nomadic feudal system ways. It wasn't until much later, I believe, that the actual Persians revolted and became Sassanids. And if I'm wrong in that history, you can correct me because you're much better versed in that history than I am.
No, I mean that's pretty much it. I mean the Parthians were there until the third century A.D. So I mean for the whole most of the Roman time period, it was the Parthians.
Right. But as you can see here, they are nomads. They have a horde, and these are all horde units, except for maybe like 2 or 3 of these units. Most of these units will get disbanded when they conquer a region. It functions just like Barbarian Invasion. And yeah, definitely have some fun with these guys. Go wherever you want. The AI is, you definitely pay attention to what the AI does. They kind of go on their own little direction. And the AI definitely likes targeting Mesopotamia, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's one of the new features from Barbarian Invasion. The other new feature from Barbarian Invasion is the diplomacy, where we can now control some of the things at the beginning of the game. So Carthage here is allied with the Massiliae, but there's a feature from Alexander that we've added. It's called the AI do not attack feature. And what that
Right.
basically does is no matter what, the AI will not attack each other. And it's going to prevent like ahistorical wars and expansion. And especially for Carthage, what happens in most mods and games is Carthage will get so focused on Numidia that they completely get wiped out in Sicily and Spain, and then they're just like one of the worst factions. They'll have all of Africa, but they'll be really weak. And this, we made it so the Massilia and the Carthage, they don't go to war as AI. Now, if you're Carthage, you can declare war. If you're the Massilia, you can declare war, and then the other faction will fight back. But as far as if you're playing Rome, Carthage is never going to declare war on the Massilia. And that's actually historical. They had them as vassals until like the Second Punic War, and then the war started. But by then the Romans were involved, so it made most sense. For the Parni here, we don't want them going to war with the Saracens. We didn't want them going all the way up north here, and we want them to go south. So there are some historical reasons behind this, but it also helps with the game balance. A few other things that we did to help with game balance is this whole region here, this desolate region of nothing, is now Terra Incognita.
Hmm.
And so what that does is it prevents the AI from traversing the area. They're just basically separated east from west. And then same thing down here, a little sliver of land. So Carthage and the Massilia are not going to go east, and the Ptolemies are not going to go west. So that way they can focus on their theater of the campaign
Yeah.
instead of, because we were running some AI testing and the Ptolemies were completely getting eaten alive by the Seleucids. And that's because they were so focused on conquering the Numidian regions, which just, it was pretty silly. See, what other features? I think the only other feature that I can really talk about is going to be in the battles. So let's check out battles now.
Right. There's one thing, the one big thing left to talk about, and yeah, that's about the units.
Oh yeah. So first, I'm going to just start very small. I just want to show, and I think a lot of people are going to enjoy this. I just want to show one thing very quickly. Okay. Okay. There we go. And that is the shield wall function from Barbarian Invasion.
Ah, right, right.
We can now give it 2 units. In old OG Rome Total War, the Barbarian Invasion formations of Skiltron and Shield Wall were locked. And
Right.
so you couldn't add them to Alexander. Ridiculous. It drove me nuts. But let's
Right,
get
you
these
couldn't
guys.
add it unless the mod was particularly based on that EXE.
Correct. And that was one of the most annoying things ever as a modder. You want everything. You want your cake and you want to eat it too. Okay. So one thing that you can notice here is new PBRs. PBRs are what kind of make the units look the way they do as far as like detail. And in the previous version, this unit, its shield and its cloak and everything would be really bright and saturated. And so the PBR really helps the metals. So you can see like the glints and the shine, just like all the detail. It's much better. If you were to look at this hoplite unit in the previous version, now look at them now, it's like a night and day difference.
Right.
So that's the thing. Now, here's the shield wall. Boom. So
Yeah, there we go.
this is now in the mod. All hoplite units should have it. I think a few Celtic units might have it as well. It's not something that we've tested a lot, so I would recommend that we get some good feedback on it. But yeah, that's the first thing I wanted to show with battles. That's going to be a tough thing to go against right there if you have like a whole bunch of these guys lined up together. But now it's the really cool stuff. Like the really, really cool stuff.
Yeah, so
Uh,
the original Rome Total War is a game that a lot of people can't go back to because they call it Attack of the Clones, right? Some people.
right.
But and when Rome Remastered has some unit variation, so it's not cloned units. But when you're porting units like Roma Surrectum units or Chivalry units from the original Rome, it's back to being Attack of the Clones, right? But
Yep.
now let's take a look at what you can do
What am I doing here?
with the new
Why am I
patch.
selecting these very specific units?
Yeah, why are you doing that?
I don't know. Good question. We'll start with the Romans.
So this feature is going to be really big for mods that are ports of old mods because a lot of the time if someone just porting by themselves, right? Like me or with a small team, you don't have time to remake everything, right? But now with
Right.
this new feature, you can essentially have multiple models in the same unit. And what this means is what we're going to show you right now. So this will make uh, the job porting much easier and much more in depth because you can actually add unit variation without updating the models to the remastered ones, which of course takes more work and maybe a lot of people can't do that or don't have the time to do that. So let's
Yeah, exactly. So I want to show off the Roman units first. There's a couple factions that have been done. You can just see right here, even from a bird's eye view. Um, do these look like clones to you right now? They don't look like clones to me, do they? They look quite different. So we're gonna go in and Gudea, I think your mic might have cut out.
no, I'm here. I'm here. I thought you were
Okay.
talking to the audience. Okay.
Oh, I'm talking to you too.
Okay.
Like, why isn't he answering? Where is he calling?
All
Where's
right.
Gudea? Okay, so this is a very basic one. I think this is one of the first ones that our guy Tone did. So you can't really tell right here, but just small little details. You got blue shield, a white shield, and then you have like a turquoise / white shield. These are the italic velites. Eventually we're going to change their cloaks. They're not their cloaks, their tunics as well.
Yeah.
But here's the regular velites. Again, different shield colors. So this is just the tip of the iceberg, people. This isn't all that we can do. This is just something that we felt like we could get done quickly, and show like, hey, look what can be done now. So these are multiple model entries using different textures for each model combined in the same unit. And if you
Right.
want to know how to do that, I will, before the video ends, we will be going through a couple of the files. But it's a very, very, very easy thing to do. So let's look at some cooler units now, because the velites are kind of basic. How about the
Right.
Hastati? Look at that. And look at these shields. So these are regular Hastati. They have kind of the basic Roman looking shield structures of white and brown, a little bit of red detail, but they have, the white tunics and the red tunics. Now, imagine this. Eventually at RAS, we are going to work on getting the Roma Surrectum equipment and textures paired with the Rome Remastered ethnic body and face system. So
Exactly.
face clones will no longer be there. So imagine a combination of the two. It's going to be absolutely amazing. And I think it's going to rival Rome 2 and the variation. There's a lot of things I think that we've shown here today that in time with modding and discipline and time is we're eventually gonna rival Rome 2. It's gonna be a preference thing. Do you prefer the way Rome 2 plays, or do you prefer the way Rome 1 or Rome Remastered plays? Because they can both offer you the same amount of content. And I think Remastered maybe has an edge with editing the map. But there's some people that really love the Rome 2 battle system, and I get that. But Rome Remastered is going to offer a lot more, and it's going to be a harder decision now for players. If you look at these cool shields right here, these are the Principes.
Yeah, the PBR makes the shields look nice too.
We are, you can think Swagger and Tone have done an amazing job. These are the Italic Custodi, so these are like the Socii units with Roman arms, but they kind of kept their Italic shield designs. Here's the Italic Principes. And then you look at the Equites too. These are the Italic Equites with different shields, cloaks, different tunics,
Right. So I
colors.
guess the important thing for people to realize is that, these are different models. So even though it looks like it's the same model with a different texture, that's just because that's the easiest way to insert variation quickly. But
Yes.
but having different models, like you could, even without using the ethnicity system, you could add variation by just changing the face in the textures. It's just the quickest way to do this is to change like shield textures, and that's the way you've done it here. But the
That's
potential,
the
like you could make
case.
one guy an elephant if you want,
Right.
right? Or
Well,
whatever
here's
you
the
want.
thing. I could combine the Principe model and the Hastati model into one unit. And so you would have your Hastati looking guy maybe here and here, but then you have a Principe looking guy as well. And
Yeah.
I think the way the engine is, as long as they have the same weapons, basically. So um, they have to have the same animations. So
Hmm.
I think it would be quite weird if you put a Velite with a Hastati, because of the way the weapons are
Right.
in their models. But as long as their model structure for weapons is similar and their animations are the same, you can do all kinds of different variations. So think of like Medieval 2 Total War, where your units can have variations.
Yeah.
Also, you can modify the variations based on I think reforms and whatnot. So you can kind of phase variations out and in, um,
Exactly.
based on. And so as the Hastati and the Principes developed through their conquest of the Mediterranean, they took on different arms and armor, like chainmail, and they adapted new swords and pile and whatnot. And so that can now be represented
And because you
in a
have
very
all unlimited reforms, you can have
correct.
like
I
unlimited
mean,
progression based on
yeah,
regions you take.
exactly. So you can have multiple Roman reforms. Here's the Italic Triarii, and then here's the Triarii with all those cool Roman shields. And then I'll show you the general unit here real quick before we move on to Carthage, which I think people are going to really love Carthage. Um, so yeah, these are the Romans. These were the first ones that Tone did. Let's look at Carthage now. I think Carthage is amazing. He actually just finished up Carthage.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's
Carthage is, I think, what people are going to be happy about seeing. The Carthaginian units look really nice. And again, these are original Rome Total War ported units that have variation in them.
I don't think he did elephants, but we're gonna do it anyway.
Why not?
I don't know.
An
Darn
elephant
Tone.
elephant with the same animation as a Hastati. That would be great.
Um, hmm, wondering if I have a duplicate in here that I can just get rid of real quick. No, we're
No,
good.
I don't
I'm
think so.
sure people understand that this guy has some variation now.
Yeah, yeah.
There are some Celtic units that were done too. Not all the Celts are done, so I'm not going to show them off. They're the Celtic unit that I'm about to show here with Carthage. So, but I believe most of the Iberian units were also done, and I believe all the Numidian units were done. Um, uh-oh, please tell me there's not going to be a crash.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I mean, we're still not done yet. We still got a week left to iron out some issues.
Yeah, maybe this might be a good place to um, sort of send off this video because I think we pretty much touched on just about everything. We talked about, the new factions, the new regions, the religion
Yeah,
system. And remember, with the religion system, I don't think we mentioned this, but you can now have unlimited religions, right?
yeah,
So
definitely.
you can add, and I'm sure you have plans for this, to add other cultures as well, if you're using the religion system as a secondary culture system. And then, the Barbarian Invasion Alexander features, that's huge, right? Parthia as a
Mhm.
horde. The Alexander AI do not attack feature, that's pretty big. I don't recall any major mod utilizing that Alexander feature, so this is going to be. I use it as well in Chivalry, so no one's going to attack the Papal States, right? Or I mean the Catholic kingdoms are not going to attack the Papal States.
This completely froze the game. That's crazy. I
Yeah,
wonder, try something with one of the models because he
yeah,
just finished Carthaginians.
yeah. I haven't seen an error like this freeze the game, and I've seen a lot of them when developing
Shit.
Chivalry.
Oh, I think that both of us behind the scenes, we have experienced a lot of issues.
Yeah.
But yeah, honestly, with showing the Romans, I think we've showed every single or shown every single thing that I wanted to show today. It's just too bad that everybody's gonna have to wait to see the Carthaginians
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, you'll just have to wait. But I believe at the time this video will get published, there will be some screenshots.
Oh, there's plenty.
Yeah.
We just haven't put it out there yet.
They'll be
We
out
have
there when the video's released, though. Right.
yeah, so look, I'm probably gonna have to reboot the computer to get out of this one, which
Well, I
don't worry
guess,
for watching, you're not gonna have to go through this. This is a this is modding life right here. This
yeah.
is we don't release things that are gonna break like this, but this is what we get to go through when we constantly changing files and adding new things. So for those of you that want to mod, don't let this detract you from doing it because it's just part of it.
Yeah.
It's trial and error, and this is just an error. So
So on that note, I think this will be a good place to stop this video. So, Ahowl, thanks for joining us here on Good Day at Total War. And yeah, good luck with this new release. Good luck developing the next versions for the patch. I mean, of course, there's still so much left to talk about in terms
oh my
of
God, I
upcoming
can't over the next. I
several
mean,
months.
there's
Yeah.
for every release, yeah, it's good. I feel like there's going to be like a whole list of things to talk about for each release. So I'm looking forward to it. But thank you for doing this with me for each release and talking with me about the new stuff because I think this is the best way to kind of
Get the info out there.
get info out there in a genuine, honest, upfront way instead of just having like a list of things to read through. I think this is a better way to showcase and yeah, definitely looking forward to making more videos and seeing where the modding scene takes off from here.
Yeah, yeah, me too, me too. So anyway, thanks again, Ahowl. And if any of you are interested in the historical Total Wars and their mods, consider subscribing. I'll see you in the next one.